Hey guys, it's Brock Bowen here. You know me also as the Lifetarian, amongst other things. And I'm here today with a friend of mine, Marko Petrovic. And we haven't met in person yet, but I can't wait till we do. I know it's going to be amazing. We'll always have adventures. And we started, just talking a little bit before. And I want to hear more of your story. So first, I'm in beautiful Cairns today. Where are you?
I'm based out in Melbourne, brother. I'm out of my organic farm. A nice little 40-acre project that I got about a year and a half ago. And I've been living out here since then, man.
Nice. And you're just showing us that you had a little snack then, because we had a little internet issue for a second, so we had to control alt delete, get back again. What do you got? What are you snacking on?
Man, I got some broad beans. I wasn't sure what was happening, so I thought I'd take the opportunity and just go outside to the garden, get some mustard leaves.
Yeah, man.
Get some cilantro, coriander, some oregano. Just loving it, man. Getting my greens in.
There's something about it, right? Like just having ones that you've grown and they're literally right within the proximity of your body. And it's just, there's something about it. Like it's an intention that I have to have some land and, have to do all those different things. There's something about it that we feel called to. But a bit about your story. Like how did you end up? You're on a 40-acre farm. You're not too far out of Melbourne. How did you end up on a property like this?
Well, it's a pretty funny story, brother. A lot of people ask me, how did you find that place, all this kind of stuff. And truth be told, I feel like the experience for me was more as if the place found me and chose me. And what I mean by that is I didn't really have intentions at the time of buying a place or anything like that. I was pretty happy with my situation at the time, which just allowed me flexibility to, run around the planet and roam free like a gypsy when I felt to. But it started off as a joke with my dad, actually. My dad is your traditional European mindset around the ideas of success and what they look like, being, get your degree, get a couple of houses, and you're set for life.
Yeah.
And so we sat down and we're just having this father-son moment where he was like, you know what, son, I think it's time you started looking at your first investment property. And for me, the way I spend my money is only if it's directly aligned with my values. And while having a home is aligned with my values, having a property portfolio really isn't. I just have no desire to be, paying for years for something that is just simply an investment. Like we come to this earth naked and we leave it naked. So I'm not into the idea of just accumulations of assets for the sake of it. Like it really has to speak to my soul and nourish me on that soul level. So I was at a point where I'd done a couple of seasons in our backyard garden, and I thought to myself, you know what, it would actually be cool if I got a farm and started to create more of a sanctuary rather than just a little backyard patch. So as a joke, just to get him off my back, I was like, you know what, Dad, I'll tell you what, if you find me a 40-acre property with a house on it and like some fences and no more than an hour from the city, like I'll buy it. And I set a really low budget thinking that, like this will take care of me. There's no chance he'll find something. And I spent a bit of time looking at real estate online just to make sure. And I was definitely taken care of. And it was only a few weeks later that he showed up and he was like, son, he was high as a kite. He was over the moon. And he was like, son, I found your place. Let's go. So we jumped in the car that day and we drove down here. And as soon as we got here, I fell in love with the place. It was an experience as if I was coming home. It was the first time I'd ever seen the place, which was really interesting to me. It was just very synchronistic or serendipitous, if you will. And I made an offer that day, and a month later we'd settled for the place, and that's how it all happened. It was very spontaneous, but it was very timely in some way. I think life has this mystical way of communicating to us. And there was just so many serendipitous experiences leading into it that the place ended up choosing me, man.
Yeah, I love that example. There's a lady down on the Great Ocean Road. I went on a trip that felt again like the trip chose me. I thought I was going to this particular farm in New South Wales to consult on the business and help the guy out, which is some of the things I'd been doing since I sold my business. And in the end, there was this opportunity to relocate a van all the way back from from Adelaide all the way back to Sydney. But rather than go on the direct route, I went the Great Ocean Road. And the serendipity that my friend and I had, I gave him about 24 hours notice and he booked a flight and came with me on this adventure for, 5 days away. I love those adventures. It was a Mercedes-Benz van about 1.5 times the size of an ambulance. And so we're cruising along the Great Ocean Road and along from Adelaide. And our signal was every time that our heads turned, at the same time, we had to pull over. So we gave it a signal. Every time our heads turned, we had to pull over, and we ended up in this beautiful place between Lorne and Apollo Bay on the Great Ocean Road. And it was a lady named Leslie. And Leslie, when I met her, we drove the van onto her property, even though it was a private property. We felt cold. And we checked out. She's got this beautiful food forest and just a magical oasis, you know, a sanctuary. It was beautiful. Yeah. Turns out it's 280 acres on the Great Ocean Road. But when she was about 35, she left Byron Bay with a 4-year-old. In her combi van. She'd gypsied it around the world for all this time, and then all of a sudden she drove from up in Byron Bay all the way down to the Great Ocean Road. For some reason, she felt cold.
Yep.
And as she got there, she saw this land, and I don't know that it was even available for sale. Definitely not to a 35-year-old blonde-haired, dreadlocked hippie. They wouldn't even let her on the property at the time. It was a dairy farm or something at the time. And she ends up purchasing, and 30 years later, she's still there. And when I asked her about it, she goes, similar to your story, it's like the land chose me. And it's fascinating too for all these different things, because if someone hasn't heard that before, a lot of people are going to be tuned into the people that I chat to. They're going to be on this path. They're going to be on the awakening path, or whatever we want to call it, whatever terms we want to use for it. People that are tuned in, aware. But for you, how has it been that you've evolved into being able to listen to that gentle calling and not just listen to it, but actually take action? Because everyone, I believe, hears the wisdom, the intuition. People get it. People always say, I had a hunch about the Melbourne Cup. I had a hunch that was going to happen. I had a feeling. Everyone says it, but most people don't act on it. So how did it become that you're now someone who takes action on your intuition or your higher intelligence?
Yeah, got it. Man, powerful question. I love it. Making me reflect.
It's fun too, right?
Yeah, totally. I guess for me, I went through, I still followed that model that my parents laid out to me to some degree. I chose my own expression of it, but I still followed that model of take care of your finances, all that kind of stuff. But I was just really disappointed by that whole system. Like when I got to that financial goal and life was going to be sweet, the way I bought into it was going to be. Like I hit that number, and it was within days that I started to get this depression come over me, where I realized that, like, what next? And I guess in many ways, that's where the journey from the head to the heart started for me. In recognizing that it's almost as if, I'm not sure on the perfect languaging for it, but it's almost as if we have free will, but we don't. It's like we have the free will to choose to do whatever we want, absolutely. Yet at the same time, it's almost like there's a path already laid out for us. And for me, in my journey, I just got to a point where I was more curious about that path than about anything else. And that kind of shifted a lot of the fears that came with, the projections of parents or authorities, or, what if I don't make this happen, and all this kind of stuff. I honestly didn't care about it, because I was more curious about what was on the other side of that fence and the magic that was available to me, because I'd experienced the rest of it, and I just wasn't okay living my life that way anymore. Especially recently. Like I had a friend recently pass away in a motorbike accident. He was in his mid-20s, and it just really humbled me and reminded me that, life is so delicate, and why waste time? Right? Why not just embrace that which has us come most alive? So I'm a very kinesthetic person, and you'll probably notice in the way that I speak about all of this, it's a very felt experience for me, where it's almost like there's a little pebble on my heart, and if the experience is guiding me towards more of that magic, more of that enchantment, more of that awakening path, if you will, if it's guided by the universe or great spirit or God, or whatever label you want to put on it, it's almost like that pebble on my heart lifts, and there's a levitational force that I feel inside me. And if I feel I'm going against that path, then it's almost like this pebble drops, and there's like a little stone hanging on my heart. It's asking me to pay attention. And it's very subtle now, because I try and stay as present to that as I can and really live my life from that space. But in earlier days, I'd neglect that for so long that weight would be relative to the degree that I'd hold on to it for, right? It's like all our emotions. So it would really start to weigh on me and really pull me down. And when my vitality and all my life force was just totally zapped, that's when I'd stop and actually question what's going on here. And I realized that I'd pursued this path which wasn't truly aligned to me and my values and what I'm here to do. So So I'm not sure if I answer your question entirely.
I like it though. I'm always fascinated by the indicators, because if a lot of people read the stories and they want to hear the business strategy of the billionaires,
Yep.
they're always like that. But the thing I always look at is what are the habits they're into. They started, looking at astrology, astronomy, awareness, different things like that. But one of the things that I often hear is that a lot of the billionaires have an indicator in their body. You have one that you can clearly articulate. That's a pebble around your heart. I have it where I can feel my heart, but I also get goosebumps. I work with clients around the world like yourself. And if I don't get the goosebumps, I got them then actually. If I don't get the goosebumps when I speak to someone, like if I didn't get the goosebumps on an interview with you, I wouldn't do it. If I didn't get the goosebumps before I was going to do it, that's my indicator. And it's quite a funny one, because I do calls with people. You do that thing where someone wants to try out to see if they get to be your client. And do those, or blah, blah, blah. Like just different ways to frame my business and so forth. But if I don't get the goosebumps, similar to you, I don't want to invest my time or energy or resources, even if they're going to pay me X amount of dollars, if I don't get that indicator. And the more that I honor that, there's so much more serendipity and magic shows up, even when it doesn't seem like that. It almost seems the opposite at times. So that the thing I wanted to ask you next, though, is now you've got that indicator. That's where I wanted to get to. How did you learn to trust it? You said you've made it more important than anything else.
Yep.
But say in terms of a decision making, a lot of people have a huge amount of fear out. You've done well in business, and we'll talk about that before. And you'd saved up some cash, you'd done a few things in business, blah, blah, blah. But it's still, logically, for some people, it's a risk. You don't have an experience creating an experience like this before. You've done a little garden patch. Now you've got 40 acres. There's always going to be people around you telling you can't do it. Usually shows up when it's the greatest thing ever.
Yep.
So how do you as a man, as a human being, how do you listen to that voice or that indicator more than anyone else?
Yeah. I guess in realizing that it's not my voice. For me, where I guess the shift was, it was probably when I went out to Peru. So I had a very powerful experience where I just woke up one morning, and I even get emotional now just connecting to that experience. I woke up one morning just floored with emotions of deep bliss and gratitude. And this was at a point where I'd explored meditation and these, alternative approaches to, like relating to yourself. That was my languaging for it back then. It's funny how it's loading up. And my belief around it all was that, that stuff's cool, but it wasn't really practical. And it wasn't really an experience that I could connect to. So my meditation practice was like, sit there and breathe, but nothing really happens. And then I just woke up this morning and I had this powerful urge to just fly out to Peru. And I thought it was totally nuts, but I honored it. And I went out to Peru and I ended up doing an ayahuasca ceremony with like 30 shamans. It was just beautiful at one of the full moon ceremonies. And that was actually what lined me up perfectly to come back and get this property. But that aside, what I recognized in that experience was that the interconnectedness of life, and recognizing that there's a spirit that moves through all of us. And in my experience only, I'm by no means an expert on spirituality or religion or anything like that, but in my experience, I recognize that there's this one source of love that is within me, is within you, and every person that listens to this and that exists out there and in all forms of creation. So that source, it's like when it speaks to me at this level of the heart, when that pebble lifts, I know that that's not me speaking. I know that that's not like Marko's ego saying like, I'm going to do this thing. It's just like a very gentle push by the earth saying like, here you go, child, try this.
Yeah.
And knowing that I'm supported by the earth and that I can only fall down so far, like she's right beneath me and she's breathing with me with every step I take, having that connection to her just nails all the concerns, all the fears, all the logical reasons not to do it. And I agree, there's 1,000 logical reasons I could list out why I shouldn't have a property and why it's a bad idea and all this kind of stuff. But when you feel that support from this massive celestial body that's just constantly loving, even though she's been raped and destroyed and her resources have been stripped, and she still loves us so deeply and nourishes us so powerfully. I can't not trust it. It's harder for me not to trust it than to trust it.
Yeah, man. I feel you there for sure. That's it. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. And, you know, with my family, for instance, very religious, very inside the box. My mum would still send me, my background's in corporate recruitment. Corporate recruitment sales for a big vitamin company based down in Melbourne. I think we mentioned that one, and a few different things. But my mum, from time to time, up until about 2 years ago, my mum would still send me HR roles or corporate roles up here in Cairns. She's seen, you know, previous careers, 6-figure jobs, blah, blah, blah. She's like, oh, this would be amazing for you. And now what I've learned to do is just go, thanks, Mum, just send it through on an email. And when she sends the email through, I actually just click delete. And then, like now, my mum sends me these clothes, like this beautiful singlet. That's her way of showing love. You know, if I'm able to receive her and not judge her and just say, you know what, Mum, thanks for the information. Because what I realize is this, if I try and block her, it makes it a challenge. But what I sense is if I just keep receiving the information from my mum, one day she's going to drop something into my lap that's so amazing, it's going to change our whole reality. She's going to just send me on, you know, like Mother Earth. If I can keep receiving my own mother, I've been contemplating that a little bit more too, and just going, well, how can I receive my own mother even more? And
that's beautiful, man.
It's an interesting one though. Before I went on that trip overseas, you might have seen we themed our life around the greatest love story ever told, and I started having that heart feeling that we're going to California. And all of a sudden, we had people book in for our Airbnb from California. We were watching them on YouTube, and then 30 minutes later, they're actually at our door. We didn't know it was our Airbnb guest. Christy was just watching some random people that happened to be on our YouTube, and we've been experiencing this more and more. So that's what I wonder. Like, you know, what's your? You know, obviously, you got a European background. Is it Croatia? Which country are your parents from originally?
Yeah, former Yugoslavia. So.
Oh yeah.
My parents are Serbian, but they were living in Bosnia at the time. Back then, you know, it was all former Yugoslavia. It was all one nation. So that's my roots are entirely from there. And when I say entirely, I actually saw a really interesting. It was like a short film that they made where they take people whose lineage is strictly from Ireland or strictly from England, and they actually do DNA tests and show that, you know what, you're actually from all over the world, and you've got roots that stem from like Chile, that stem from like North America, that stem from Asia. It's just beautiful.
I'm always fascinated by this too. I want you to contemplate this one too as well. I almost feel sometimes like I'm an Indigenous elder trapped in a white man's body. Not trapped, but I go to the most random spots on the planet, just happen to just walk for hours out to a waterfall, and I'll get there, and just at that particular moment, there's 2 Indigenous elders that have come there to visit. They haven't been there for 30 years. And man, the way that... Yeah, dude. Because the way that they all found each other was not through social media or the way that we often will, but they would just know. You know, another friend, I don't know if you know who he is, but Daniel Eisenman, he's a friend that was in a group that used to call himself the Raw Bras, and his grandmother, his grandmother and mine, they both passed away between 100 and 101. We're both expecting children at a similar time. The day that his grandmother passed away, I just had a feeling that something was up. So I sent him a message. Next thing we're having a conversation like this. And that's what I've always learned, is like how to contemplate that feeling more. But one of the things that I'm curious to reflect on now, and for yourself, is how much time are you spending with the Indigenous elders? Is that something you've started to explore yet? I know you said the shaman in Peru, which I want to go into that more, but I'm just curious about in Australia as well.
Yeah. Well, in Australia, I've tried. But my experience has been met with a little bit of resistance, and I mean, granted, given what they've been through and how sacred the relationship to the earth is, it's something that I am deeply fascinated about and really want to learn about. And at the same time, I haven't come across very many elders that are open to just share information to white people. So a lot of my, I guess, experiences have been as a result of doing like deeply immersive work on myself. So as an example, like I'll do a really deep fast, clear out my channel, and as that conduit opens up and downloads start coming through of information, then I've had experiences in my dreams and stuff like that where I'll get visited by elders and like information will be shared. And sometimes it's just as simple as following the kookaburras and listening to their laughs and paying attention to what they're actually showing you. My greatest lessons have come from really spending that time and observing in silence just what's already happening out there. As far as actual flesh elders, I haven't spent much time with them. I've spent a little bit of time with a few aunties.
Yeah.
But even when I was around them, the energy that they carry and what they embody within that speaks to me more than the words that they share. And that's not to dismiss the words that they share. Everything that they shared was powerful, but just sitting in that space and dropping into myself. And it's almost like you realize there's this unconscious conversation happening between our resonant fields. That, like, you can't even put the words, and you just sit there and you're floored by it because all the information is there. It doesn't even have to be expressed by word. It can be felt. And that was the biggest takeaway for me. I once asked one of the aunties a question about feeling. And this was just as I came back from Peru, like I was feeling a lot, and I was really open, like my heart just felt really expanded, and like I was feeling plants and animals and starting to cultivate that experience within myself. And I thought I was really onto it. So I asked her this question about feeling, and she looked me dead in the eyes. I'll never forget this. Looked me dead in the eyes. And she said, "You don't get it." And I was a little taken back by that. I thought, "What do you mean?" You don't get it. You white men separate. These weren't her words exactly, but she said, "You white men separate thought and feeling. We're always feeling."
Nice.
And when she said that, it really hit me because I was still in this world of like, cool, now I'm in logical thought and doing this thing and building my business or whatever. And now I'm going to go into feeling. But for them, they just live their lives in that state.
Nice.
And as I understood that, I was like, wow, like that for me was straight through the glass ceiling. It took me to a whole new level where I began to question if I'm always feeling, then what's actually being said, what's actually being felt that I'm not aware of.
I like that distinction. Something else you said too was pay attention. That comes up a lot for me too. If we were just to pay attention every day and just to have that contemplation or be engaged and present and pay attention, life would be radically different. Something that I've been just doing, I went to a sacred site. It's actually in the Royal National Park in Sydney. And again, I was flying into Sydney. I hadn't made plans, but I knew that some remarkable things were about to happen. I just had a feeling. And then my friend called me up, and we've gone on a lot of different adventures together. He feels like a soul connection brother, and he's someone you'd love to meet too. He runs around the world with a brand called Digital Storytellers, but they do stuff with Vandana Shiva that's really into organic farming, Dalai Lama, some really, really powerful people. And he took me to the Royal National Park with someone. I didn't know what the adventure was, and I got there and we sat down and we're all eating pizza. I'm like, well, my normal judgments come up, pizza, soft drink, what the fuck, like looking at the shitty food. I went, cool, just go with it. Didn't really eat any pizza. I had a glass of water, good to go. Maybe I ate one piece of pizza to try and fit in. You do these things. But trying to get into the experience. And later on we went out to the national park and a group of people, and there's probably about 10 of us there. And we could have gone straight to the spot that we went to and just parked the car and gone in. But part of the process is we parked down the bottom of the hill and we had to go without lights through the scrub and find our way up to the top. How do we know how to find it? Because we just knew. We just had to get there. So a group of us going through the scrub, and we get up the top, and you get a bit scratched up. You do all those different things. It's a bit of an adventure. And then we meet at this particular spot up the top. Some people got a little bit lost. We all end up finding each other. But we walked out to this spot, and I'd heard these stories before, these examples of things, and it's still hard for me to logically believe it now, but I've experienced it because we went to a spot where, say, all of a sudden you walked about 3 to 5 meters away from me, and it was at night, but all of a sudden I could see through you. And for me, it was interesting because we hear about it, if you talk about science and everything, that you can biolocate, you hear different things about how obviously like a molecule can disappear or reappear, how everything can shift like that. And I had a lot of experiences of that, but to actually just be in that experience of looking at you right now and all of a sudden I'm looking straight through you, it was interesting. And I went, well, if that's truly possible, well, what isn't possible? If someone can disappear right in front of my eyes, what truly isn't possible? So if we're willing to receive that guidance and live, I guess that's that thing now, 1,000% commitment to our path. I think sometimes people try and live in every different world, but I think that same thing too, if we don't separate, that business and spirituality and farming and everything we do is actually based on the feeling. If we contemplate that, that's what I truly believe the billionaires are doing. That's why I believe Richard Branson is able to run a company of 300 people. He's guided somehow. I'm always fascinated by that. So daily habits is something I always like to ask about too. Oh, guess what? We got to celebrate. The battery's on 55%. Boom. It's my favorite. There's something about that number. Apparently it's a sacred manifesting ritual. I designed a program around it, but 55, I don't know, it means something to me. If I say 55, does it resonate with you at all if you just contemplate it?
Yeah, my heart lifts. There's something there. Yeah.
There's something there. And when I just had a download and had to create something, and all of a sudden, apparently it's a sacred manifesting ritual.
I like it. 55.
Cool. So for you to stay in the contemplation, connected in all the different things, you're obviously living in a sanctuary, which is super cool. 40 acres around you. You've got a sense of space where you are.
Yep.
So that's obviously one thing. That's a clear one to point out. But what are some of your daily practices? I'm always curious about that with people that I have respect for. I always like to ask them their daily practices.
Yeah. I used to do a lot. And over this year, when I say I used to do a lot, I used to make all of them a must. And now over this year, I've really filtered away the ones that aren't a necessity for me, but are more a luxury. So if I have the time and space, I'll do them. And if I don't, I just won't. I guess it's valuable to say that I do follow an intermittent fasting protocol. So I don't eat until midday, and I'll usually only eat in a 2 to 3 hour window.
Yeah.
So the way my daily practices go, as far as like just getting myself to a state where I'm like, boom, just ready to go, ready to show up for life. I'll do a cold shower.
Nice.
That's an absolute must. So the reason I do that is because I'm huge on doing something every day that stretches you outside of your comfort zone. And man, no matter how many cold showers you do and how many ice baths you do, every time you look at that knob and you're about to turn it, and you know cold water's coming out, that stretches you outside of your comfort zone.
So don't do it, man.
I noticed, yeah, totally. And you have that mental battle of there's two walls, that, as they say, the one that's guiding you towards good and the one that's keeping you in comfort. So every single morning I do that. That's my number one thing. As soon as I wake up, before anything else, while like my body's still switching on, I just get under there. And I know the first 3 to 5 seconds are extremely painful, but after that, you're on and you're just ready to go. So that's my number one. I absolutely do that every single day. I can't miss that. And then my number two is I do the Wim Hof breathing method. So I really got into his work, after I saw the world records and stuff that he had. And I'll do 3 to 4 rounds of his breathing, and I'll do the stretching.
Should you share that really quickly now, just so we know, for other people that don't know the Wim Hof breathing method? They can obviously Google it. I like to give people quick things that we can all do together right now.
Yeah, of course. So his method is very, very, very simple. Big, deep diaphragmatic breaths. So you're breathing in fully, and then you're just letting go. So it's not an exhale, just a let go. So and you do this as powerfully as you can. The more you give of yourself, the more you get. And this is, number one, it oxygenates the system, because what you're doing is, rather than exhaling, when you let go, you're just releasing the carbon dioxide that remains in the system, and you're oxygenating more. So you're alkalizing the body, which is a big win. You're oxygenating the entire system. You'll actually feel, everyone notices this when they do it for the first couple months, your nervous system switches on in ways that you've never felt it. So you'll feel like electricity is flooding through your body until that becomes the norm. And your vision through your third eye, you actually start to see your nervous system. So it's almost like you get X-ray vision inside your own body. And then when you do stretches, or when you do any kind of exercise, like I'll go and I'll work out, or even if I'm just working on the land, it's like I'm connected to my body in such an intimate way that I never experienced beforehand. So I treat it almost as like a daily chiropractic checkup. It's like you don't need a practitioner to take care of you. You can take care of yourself if you just take the time to breathe deep, to connect in, and to do a bit of intentional stretching. I found those two things set the day for me. Nice. I leave that breathing, like I get the power from the cold shower, and then I get the calm, centered gracefulness from the breathing and the stretching. And then it's like everything's just lined up, heart, mind, like you're just still and you're ready to go. And that's those are my absolute musts. Outside of that, I'll still do a morning gratitude, 3 points of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I just follow Tony Robbins' model on that, where something simple, something personal. So it might be a feature about myself, or like a trait or an action that I did, and something about the world around me.
Mm-hmm.
So the simple thing just might be like the sunlight, or a roof over my head, or food on my plate, the personal one, and then something about someone else. So it might be an awesome testimonial from a client, and the results that they're getting. It might be the opportunity to get to connect with awesome people like yourself. It might be the opportunity to travel the world, something like that. Yeah.
Nice. It's such a fun thing too. The thing I noticed as well is something some people seem to do is they find one tribe and they stick to it. And what I've noticed with you is probably similar to myself, is we learn from lots of different people. And if it works, add it into the repertoire. And if it doesn't, leave it. I think it's a good thing. I was talking to a friend, Frank J, yesterday on a similar conversation to this. And he was just talking about that, how his thing is international tribe design, which is all about forming your tribe, which is kind of funny. He goes, it's kind of funny because similar to you, Brock, I like to actually just go off and do my own thing. Which is an interesting thing, right, to contemplate as we go through it. But you're also into some activism. We was talking about that before we started recording, and obviously you've got a deep connection to Mother Earth, and you feel that. And there's something that's on your heart today, so we'll share it because people are going to watch this right away, and it's good for them to be aware of, regardless. There's a scenario that's happening right now on Mother Earth that we're all pertinent to. Friends like Dustin Thomas, I don't know if you know him, but Dustin Love Thomas is a guy who used to be with a group called Marko and Medicine for the People, and with a group that perform around the world. And he left when he was in Byron Bay on tour to actually go and stop fracking. And now he's doing some activism around, this scenario that you're aware of too. But he literally left his secure job or band or whatever it happens to be so he could stop fracking. Now he's doing stuff here. So what's the scenario right now? What's going on?
Well, the scenario is with the event that's happening out at Standing Rock in North Dakota. There's a lot of big corps that want to lay down a pipeline for access to oil, which if it does go through, it'll poison about 20 million people's drinking supply in the States.
Yeah, wow.
But beyond that, they're going through and they're ripping up sacred sites of the Indians, which is peace treaty land. And Indian tribes have gathered from the far north to the far south, and they've all gathered to stand united together, which is a never before seen thing. Literally tribes that have had angst against each other for centuries have come together and joined as allies to stand for Mother Earth, because beyond the tribes and beyond Dakota and beyond Standing Rock, like, we're poisoning the lifeblood of the earth. And given that it would make sense to have when I say sacred, I mean a loving and I'm lost for words. A loving relationship with that which gives us life, which actually allows us to express ourselves rather than to rape it and destroy it and pull it away. So these tribes have gathered. There's over 300 tribes from all around the world now, and they're prayerfully protesting, which is beautiful. So they're out there. They're getting laced with pepper spray, with mace, with rubber bullets. Like, it's quite sad to watch. And yet they're standing there in prayer, being non-violent, and just sharing their sacred songs, sharing prayers. And they've called for everyone around the planet. In Melbourne, it's between 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. Saturday through to Sunday, to just spend some time with intentional prayer, with love, do an offering of tobacco, because tobacco to them is a very sacred plant that's used in ceremony. And they just ask for us to join in that way. And for me, what I see on a much larger scale is, like, it speaks closely to my heart because it's obviously the earth, our home, the place that we live. But on a much larger scale, like, it's an opportunity to create such a radical consciousness shift. One, in connecting to the idea that we are all connected, which a lot of people that are watching us are already probably tuned into that. But to have a direct experience of it on such a large scale and with something that's got so much momentum behind it, I just saw it as a very, very powerful thing. So in Melbourne, we're gathering for about 4 hours. We're going to have some sacred songs. We're going to do an offering of water, because that's the whole theme behind this. We're going to do some tobacco offerings. I'm trying to organize a haka as well.
Nice.
So again, uniting tribes, coming together as one tribe in Melbourne, and 200 to 300 people just offering love, sending love to all the people that are at Standing Rock on both sides, the tribes and the people that are inflicting the trauma, because they're going to have to process that in their own time as well.
I feel you for sure. It's an interesting one. It definitely stirs up those emotions for sure. I have days as I contemplate where it's just, I always want to stay clear and present to what I can create. And I do have days where definitely I get emotional and cry a bit at what we are doing right now, and then just get back into action and back into inspiration and know that it is possible to change these scenarios for sure. And I love what people were able to do in the Byron Bay area when fracking was going to happen there, where people stood and stood together.
Yeah. And that was beautiful to watch.
Yeah, it's really cool. It was just fascinating that, again, like you showing up in my life and different people. Dustin Thomas is a friend that showed up when we were in California. I wrote down a goal. I wanted to meet Justin Bieber. I just feel a connection with him, that he actually gets some stuff. And I just write people's name down in what I call my magic book, and they show up in my life. I ended up hanging out with all his friends and shared an apartment with Dustin Love Thomas, who is friends of Justin. But what's cool about this is if we can start to contemplate these different things and have the influence that we can, and have those conversations with people that have a world platform. It's huge. And we're seeing that more and more with, Leonardo DiCaprio. We're seeing different celebrities that putting these messages out on the world platform, which is what I love. And really, really cool. One of my daily practices, grab your hands up for a second, is I just contemplate everyone. So I'm already doing this for my future unborn child, which so happens to be born on the 5th of May, 5 again. And that's expected due date, which I thought was funny. And it's interesting too, just having this feeling where imagine you're blessing yourself and your life and everything in your farm. Then all of a sudden you're blessing everyone in your community. Then we bless everyone in Australia, and then we go worldwide and bless everyone. And right now we want to bless everyone that's, standing for all of us. Right now at Standing Rock. Just bless all their hearts and bless their energy and bless their will, bless their effectiveness and consciousness and their ability to change this scenario into something greater. And bless all of us as humans that we can come up with different contemplations of actually how we can do it better. It's very easy, in our mind or in our awareness to say this doesn't work. And then now as we go forth, well, what next? As leaders of this new way of being in the world, what can we actually do to create something better for humanity so we can globally shift and have the greatest life ever? And the vision that I have, the thing that I see, not even a vision, it's just this sense. Imagine a possibility, a land that has clean air, clean water everywhere. You can go to the New York River.
Yeah.
You just jump in like I'm going to do after this call. I'm going to go to my favorite creek after this. It's ice cold and just done.
Right on. Love it.
And that blessing, I've just been doing it for a while, but it's changed stuff in my relationship with my mother and my father. It's changed stuff in my relationship with my sisters. It's improved things. Yeah, not just change, because change is going to happen anyway. It's facilitated some different possibilities with my family and my partner and different things. And it's just part of my practice. And actually, one of my secret weapons I'm starting to be more public about now, when I work with clients, they get a membership site, they get the weekly calls, they get the practices. But the stuff I'm doing more and more is this. I'm blessing everyone, and I'm seeing how can we actually upgrade things from that energy level. And
it's beautiful, man.
The cool thing I love about it is when I share it with everyone, all of a sudden now you can do it with all your clients around the world. You might already be doing it. But
it's beautiful that you brought it up, because I actually just recently, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, started doing it. I went along to a workshop with a friend of mine who taught invocational prayer. And my experience of prayer beforehand was nothing that I'd look to as a, I honestly didn't look at it as a valuable thing, because my experience of religion and prayer was I'd go to a church and I'd listen to a priest recite words that I didn't even understand. And I just stand there and then my legs would hurt. That was my experience. But after spending time with this guy who really embodied prayer, that was so powerful, and just feeling that blessing, that light, universal love pour through you. It's so powerful. And yeah, in my own way, exactly what you just said. I'll always do it whenever I open a space of transformation that I share with my clients or at my events. I'll always create it as a center for energy to just pour through, and to pour through the building that we're in, the city that we're in, all the orphanages, all the shelters, all the refugee camps, all the places around the planet that need healing, that need love, that need illumination of the mind, of the emotions, of any traumas. Just asking for it to pour through that space. And it's a very felt experience, especially in a larger group. Just even now as we were doing it, it was very felt. So thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, it's such a felt experience that you can't deny its power.
And tangible. I've done that process with clients. For instance, when I was down in Melbourne that time, I didn't get to catch up with you, but I had a few different clients I caught up with, and one had her biggest day in sales in 8 months the next day.
Wow.
And it's cool when it's actually tangible. People are like, cool, it makes sense. Because there's a lot of people doing, organic health food style businesses, and they're not necessarily living in the land of abundance. And I think it's important that they do, because otherwise we end up with supermarkets. We've got organic farmers that are doing okay, but they could be doing better. And as we do all these practices and share these practices, which is essentially what our elders would do traditionally. Yeah. It's all about let's collaborate, let's share, let's show the best that we have, and do these different things in business to help one another uplift, inspire, and upgrade, which is really, really fun and fascinating. But I was contemplating it too, because some of my favorite brands, Dr. Bronner's, don't you? You know the soap?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
If you go to the health food store, you'll see it. It's just like a brand, and it's got prayer all over it. And it's cool. It's in a plastic bottle. It could be glass, but it's in a plastic bottle, hopefully BPA free and all those cool things. But essentially, it's got things written all over it. It seems quite religious, but it's been going as a brand for 150 years approximately. No chance of it changing. They do blessing, they do mantras, they do all kinds of things energetically, that product, that no one's ever dared even copy it. And when I was in California on that trip, I went and saw this company, and they just created the wow factor. I went along to a hemp festival. Just so happened that when I turned up at a particular place, my friend goes, do you want to come to a festival? It was a hemp festival. I'm fascinated by the whole hemp scenario. Like, how do we bring in more of that, as a health food? And next thing, I'm at a hemp festival with this most amazing experience. And we've literally got, you've got some?
There it is. Yeah.
It's a cool thing, right? Dr. Bronner's had this fire truck size thing. Literally a whole fire truck where they do a foam pit out of this beautiful organic soap that they prepare. The whole wow factor. People can't help but notice it. That's what I want to create more of as we come together and contemplate these ideas, put things out into the reality of what is happening right now. That people just look at it and they're like, wow. Like when you're a little kid, you see things and go, wow. Then there's bushflower essences where, Ian White started a thing called bushflower essences. Have you heard about those?
Yeah.
And he's about 60. He's got the man bun or the long hair too. He likes styling it up for whatever reason. And he'll just intuitively drive 8 hours to pick a flower as it blossoms. And again, family history, about 100 to 150 years. And the things that we're contemplating now, I just want to set that thing as I go through and being a dad, and whether you choose to do that soon or whether it's a little bit later, whenever it happens to be. It's so fun having that legacy. That thing is like as your family goes through.
Yeah.
So having said that, I want to end this soon, and we can always jump on another call and record another time. We could talk for hours. But
I can see that.
No, too easy. I can't. I'll make sure I do it, or I'll not just come down and visit for an hour. I'll come down and stay with you. I think it'd be wonderful to do and connect and
awesome.
Help you out on the farm and do some cool stuff. I love that experience, right? And then ultimately I'll have my place and you can come visit, and we'll run around and we'll make all these magical places on the planet. But right now just want you to share something. Like, what's in your heart right now to share with us, whether it takes 1, 2, or 5 minutes, just to end up the conversation.
What's in my heart is a prayer that we wake up to recognizing that we're all one family, the human family. What's in my heart is deep reverence for the elements of life, and just overwhelming gratitude for how powerful life could be if we lived a little more symbiotically with everything that's already available to us. Yeah.
Mm.
You put me on the spot, but as I drop in, that's what comes up the most.
Yeah, I love it. And the thing that I love them more, as like you said, with the elders, with the aunties, is, you know, what I feel and what everyone's going to feel right now is that experience of feeling one another. And essentially that's what we're talking about when we talk about prayer, being connected, all the different elements. I could feel it. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your time. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Brother. And so interested to sit by a campfire and all those different elements, even the things that everyone thinks is not health, you know, elders, tobacco, different things. It's fun having that ceremony. It's beautiful to have ritual. It's beautiful to have those elements in our life and bring all the elements together. So yeah, appreciate your time. I'll make sure I leave details so people can get in contact with you. But look forward to seeing you soon.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother. It's a pleasure having this chat.
Boom.